Hey readers, it's Miss Winter here, and I'm really glad that you decided to join me to finish the end of the book, even though we've already had the end of the school year. I'm anxious to find out how the book ends, and I'm glad that you wanted to find out as well. So let's get going. We are reading The City of Ember, and we're currently in the middle of chapter 15, which is titled A Desperate Run. If you'll recall, so far in this chapter, Lena and Dune had returned from the pipeworks after their discovery of the boats and matches and candles, and they were waiting until the whole city had gathered for the singing to make their announcement. However, Dune had just overheard that some guards are looking for him because they're saying that he has been spreading vicious rumors. So he has just left to go find Lena to tell her what's happening. So let's find out how this chapter ends. It seemed she had barely closed her eyes when she felt Poppy's hard little heels banging against her shins. Get up, Poppy chirped. She got out of bed and dressed herself and Poppy. In the kitchen, Mrs. Murdo was mashing potatoes for breakfast. How lovely, Lena thought, to have breakfast cooked for her, to hear water bubbling in the pot, and to find a bowl and a spoon set out on the table, and vitamins lined up neatly beside a cup of beet tea. I could live here forever, Lena thought, before she remembered that in a day or two they would all be leaving. There was a sudden banging on the front door. Mrs. Murdo dried her hands and went to answer it, but before she'd taken 3 steps, the banging came again. I'm coming, Mrs. Murdo cried, and when she opened the door, there was Dune. His face was flushed, and he was breathing hard. He had a bulging pillowcase slung over his shoulder. He looked past Mrs. Murdo to Lena. I have to talk to you, he said. Right now, but... He threw a doubtful glance at Mrs. Murdo. Lena scrambled up from the table. In here, she said, towing him toward the blue-green room. When she had closed the door, Dune told her what had happened. They'll come for you too, he said. Any minute. We have to get out of here. We have to hide from them. Lena could hardly make sense of what he was saying. They were in trouble? Her legs went shaky at the knees. Hide, she said. Hide where? We could go to the school. No one would be there today, or the library. It's almost always open, even on holidays. He hopped impatiently from foot to foot. But we have to go fast. We have to go now. They have signs up about us all over the city. Signs? Telling people to report us if they see us. Lena felt as if a swarm of insects was inside her head, buzzing so loudly she couldn't think. How long do we have to hide? All day? I don't know. We don't have time to think about it. Lena, they could be outside the door this minute. The urgency in his voice convinced her. On the way through the living room, she gave Poppy a quick kiss and called, Bye, Mrs. Murdo. We have some emergency work to do. If anyone comes asking for me, say I'll be back later. They were down the stairs before Mrs. Murdo could ask any questions. Once in the street, they ran. Where to? Lena said. The school, Dune answered. They took Greystone Street, staying within the shadows as much as they could. As they passed the shoe shop, Lena saw a white piece of paper stuck up on the window. She glanced at it and her heart gave a wild jump. Her name and Dune's were written on it in big black letters. Dune Harrow and Lena Mayfleet, wanted for spreading vicious rumors. If you see them, report to Mayor's Chief Guard. Believe nothing they say. Reward. She snatched the poster off the window, crumpled it up, and tossed it into the nearest trash can. In the next block, she tore down 2 more, and Dune ripped one off a lamp post. But there were too many to get them all, and they didn't have time to waste. They ran faster. On this holiday, people slept late, and because the stores were closed, the streets were nearly empty. Still, they took the long route all the way out by the beehives to avoid Sparks Wallow Square, where a few people might be standing around and talking. They ran past the greenhouses and up Deadlock Street. As they crossed Knight Street, Lena glanced to her left. 2 blocks away, a couple of guards were crossing to Greengate Square. She tapped Dune's shoulder and pointed. He saw, and they ran faster. Had they been noticed? Lena thought not. They would have heard a shout if the guards had seen them. They got to the school and went in through the back door. In the wide hallway, their footsteps echoed on the wooden floor. It was strange to be here again, and to be here alone, without the clatter and chatter of other children. The hallway with its 8 doors seemed smaller to Lena than it had when she was a student, and shabbier. The planks of the floor were scuffed gray, and there was a cloud of finger smudges around the doorknob of every door. They went into Miss Thorne's room and, out of habit, sat at their old desks. "I don't think they'll look for us here," said Dune. "If they do, we can crawl into the paper cabinet." He set his pack down next to him on the floor. For a while they just sat there, getting their breath back. They hadn't turned the light on, so the room was dim. The only light came from beneath the blind over the window. "Those posters," Lena said after a while. "Yes, everyone will see them." "What will they do to us if they catch us?" "I don't know. Something to keep us from telling what we know. Put us in the prison room, maybe." Lena ran her finger along the B carved in the desktop. It felt like a very long time since she'd last sat at this desk. "We can't hide in here forever," she said. "No," said Dune, "just until it's time for the singing. Then when everyone is gathered in Harkin Square, we'll go and tell about the boats and the mayor. Won't we? I haven't really thought about it. I haven't had a chance to think at all this morning." "But the guards are always there at the singing, standing next to the mayor," said Lena. "They'd grab us as soon as we opened our mouths." Dune's eyebrows came together in a dark line. "You're right. So what will we do?" It was like finding yourself on a dead-end street, Lena thought. There was no way out. She stared blankly at the things that had once been her daily companions: the teacher's desk, the stacks of paper, the book of the City of Ember on its special shelf. The old words ran through her head. There is no place but Ember. Ember is the only light in the dark world. She knew now that this wasn't true. There was someplace else, the place where the boats would take them. As if Dune had read her thoughts, he looked up. "We could go." "Go where?" she said, though she knew right away what he meant. "Wherever the river leads," he said. He gestured to the pillowcase sack. "I packed up my bag this morning. I'm all ready. I'm sure I have enough for you, too." Lena felt her heart shrink a little. "Go by ourselves?" she said. "Without telling anyone?" "We will tell them." Dune was on his feet now. He went to the cabinet and got a sheet of paper. "We'll write a note explaining everything. A note to someone we trust, someone who will believe us." "But I can't just leave," said Lena. "How could I leave Poppy? And not even say goodbye to her? Not know where I'm going or if I'm ever coming back? How could you go without saying goodbye to your father?" "Because," said Dune, "once they find the boats, the rest of Ember will follow us. It's not as if we're leaving them forever." He strode across the room and rummaged in Miss Thorne's desk. "Who shall we write the message to?" Lena wasn't sure about this idea, but she couldn't, at the moment, think of a better one. So she said, "We could write it to Clary. She's seen the instructions. She'll believe what we say. and she lives close by, just up in Toric Square." "Okay," said Dune. He pulled a pencil from the desk drawer. "Really," he said, "this is a perfect idea. We can get away from the guards and leave our message behind us. And we can be the first ones to arrive in the new city. We should be the first, because we discovered the way." "Well, that's true." Lena thought for a minute. "How long do you think it will take before the rest of them find the boats and come? It's a lot of people to get organized." She numbered on her fingers the things that would have to happen. Clary will have to get the head of the pipeworks to go down with her and find the boats. Then she'll have to make the announcement to the city. Then everyone in Ember will have to pack up their things, troop down to the river, get all those boats out of that big room, and load themselves in. It could be a big mess, Dune. Poppy will need me. She pictured frenzied crowds of people, and Poppy tiny and lost among them. "Poppy has Mrs. Murdo," said Dune. "She'll be fine. Really, Mrs. Murdo is very organized." It was true. The thought of taking Poppy with her on the river, which had darted into Lena's mind, darted out again. "I'm only being selfish," she thought, "to want to have her with me. It's too dangerous to take her. Mrs. Murdo will bring her in a day or two." This seemed the most sensible plan, though it made her so sad that it cast a shadow over the thrill of going to the new city. "What if something goes wrong?" she said. "Nothing will go wrong. It's a good plan, Lena. We'll be there ahead of everyone else. We can welcome them when they come. We can show them around." Dune was bursting with eagerness. His eyes shone, and he jiggled up and down. "Well, all right," Lena said. "Let's write our message then." Dune wrote for a long time. When he was finished, he showed what he'd written to Lena. He'd explained how to find the rock with the E, how to go down to the boat room, even how to use the candles. "It's good," she said. "Now we have to deliver it." She paused a moment to see if she had any courage inside her. She found that she did, along with sadness and fear and excitement. "I'll deliver it," she said. "I'm the messenger, after all. I know back ways to go where no one will see me." An idea struck her. "Dune, maybe Clary will be home. Maybe she would keep us safe and help us tell what we know, and we won't have to leave right now." Dune quickly shook his head. "I doubt it," he said. "She's probably with her singing group getting ready. You'll just have to leave the note under her door." Lena could tell from his tone of voice that Dune didn't really want Clary to be home. She supposed he had his heart set on their going down the river by themselves. Dune glanced up at the clock on the schoolroom wall. "It's a little after 2, he said. "The singing begins at 3. After that, everyone will be in Harkin Square and the streets will be empty. I think we can get to the pipework safely then. Why don't we leave about 3:15? "You still have the key?" Dune nodded. "So after I've delivered the note to Clary, I'll come back here," said Lena. "Yes, and then we'll wait until 3:15, and then we'll go." Lena got up from the cramped desk and went to the window. She moved the blind a little and peered out. There was no one in the street. The dusty schoolroom was very quiet. She thought about Dune's father, who would be frantic when he saw his son's name on those posters and then realized later that Dune had disappeared. She thought about Mrs. Murdo, who might already have seen the posters and who would be frightened if guards came looking for Lena and terrified if Lena didn't come home by nightfall. She tried not to think about Poppy at all. She couldn't bear it. "Give me the note," she said to Dune at last. She folded the piece of paper carefully and put it in the pocket of her pants. "Back soon," she said, and went out of the room and down the hall to the rear door of the school. Dune went to the window to watch her go. He moved the blind aside just enough to see out into Pibb Street. There she was, running in that long-legged way with her hair flying. She started across Stone Grit Lane. Just before she reached the other side, Doone's breath stopped in his throat. 2 guards rounded the corner from Knack Street directly ahead of her. One of them was the chief guard. He leapt forward and shouted so loudly Doone could hear him plainly through the glass. "That's her! Get her!" Lena reversed her direction in an instant. She raced back down Pibb Street, turned down School Street toward Bilbolio Square, and vanished from Doone's sight. The guards ran after her, shouting. Doone watched, sick with horror. She's much faster than they are, he told himself. She'll lose them. She knows places to hide. He stood frozen next to the window, hardly breathing. They won't catch her, he thought. I'm sure they won't catch her. Okay, readers, that was pretty exciting for that ending of the chapter. Kind of a pretty good cliffhanger, too. So I hope you enjoyed that. And again, I'm really glad you joined me today. And make sure to join me again tomorrow, and I will upload the next chapter to YouTube. Have a fantastic rest of your day.